I'm Kitty Richards, Acting Executive Director of the DC Fiscal Policy Institute. The DC Council recently passed DC's budget for the upcoming fiscal year, and DCFPI has been working for months to ensure that that budget reflects the needs of all DC residents. In this video, we'd like to share a little bit of the work that we've been doing and the work that lies ahead to ensure that DC is a place where all residents have the resources that they need to succeed.
Childcare providers who educate low-income infants and toddlers in the district currently do not have nearly enough resources to fully cover the cost of a high-quality education, which includes decent salaries for teachers. This year, DCFPI successfully advocated for the immediate increase of $10 million to the Child Care Subsidy Program. Although this investment represents a critical step, it does not get us where we need to go fast enough. So DCFPI worked closely with council members and our partners in the Birth to 3 Policy Alliance to introduce legislation that charts a path to a real solution, a comprehensive system of supports for both early learning and healthy development. We secured $1.3 million in seed funding for key components of the legislation, and the council's final vote on that legislation is just a few weeks away. Early education is the foundation for a lifetime of learning. It's how we shape the citizens and workers of tomorrow. Increasing childcare subsidies will improve the quality of education provided to the estimated 5,100 infants and toddlers who currently participate in the program, as well as the workforce conditions of the adults who care for them. With the Birth to 3 in DC legislation as our guide, we will continue to advocate for ongoing funding for early childhood development and ensure strong program implementation that prioritizes the families with the greatest challenges.
Over the years, DCFPI has worked with coalition partners to pass a number of important programs and protections for workers. This includes increases to the minimum wage, sick and safe leave, the new paid family leave program, and wage theft laws. But good laws only help workers when they are well enforced and well implemented. Currently, DC's Department of Employment Services, or DOES, only investigates an employer when a worker files a complaint. But a lot of times these complaints do not turn into employer investigations, and other times there's workers who are just too scared to even file a complaint for fear of retaliation from their employer. This is why DCFPI, as a member of the Just Pay Coalition, successfully advocated for strategic enforcement language in the FY19 budget. Other jurisdictions use strategic enforcement to transform industries. When agencies proactively investigate industries with known labor violations, they can create a system that encourages employer compliance and also ensures the best protections for workers. We will continue to monitor enforcement in the district, and going forward, we will also continue to work with advocates and the district to think through ways to create a comprehensive workforce development system that works best for all residents.
Over the past several years, thanks to the tireless advocacy of many members of DC's community, the district has committed to ending homelessness and made historic investments in affordable housing. On homelessness this budget season alone, advocacy from DCFPI and our partners on the Way Home campaign contributed to the funding of housing for 524 individuals experiencing chronic homelessness. These are people who have been homeless for a long time and have a disability. Often their lives are at risk due to medical conditions that could be managed or even prevented in the context of stable housing. This will represent the largest investment in services for these individuals since the launch of the Strategic Plan to End Homelessness in 2015. But if the district is truly going to end chronic homelessness, next year's budget will have to go even further. Meanwhile, the mayor and council have committed an additional $100 million to the Housing Production Trust Fund this year and made a $10 million deposit into the Affordable Housing Preservation Fund. These build on several years of large investments. Unfortunately, DCFPI research has shown that only a relatively small share of these resources are flowing to our lowest income residents, despite the fact that these households are much more likely to experience severe housing challenges than folks higher up the income scale. Our April report, Building the Foundation, lays out a blueprint for how the city can secure affordable homes for the 27,000 DC households who are currently paying 50% or more of their income in rent. One piece of this puzzle is increasing local rent supplement program subsidies to trust fund units to be sure that those units are truly affordable to our lowest income households. Thanks in part to DCFPI research, this year's council-passed budget includes the largest increase to these subsidies in 5 years, bringing an additional 163 affordable homes within reach of DC's lowest income residents.
Some 44,000 students, or about half of DC students, currently qualify for at-risk funding because they're growing up in low-income families who are struggling to make ends meet or they're falling behind in the classroom. At-risk funds are intended to supply schools with supplemental resources, but tight school budgets have consistently led to the misuse and redirection of those funds to cover basic staffing. This year, alongside our partners, DCFPI's advocacy led to an increase in the at-risk week for the first time since its creation, generating $2 million more for low-income students on an ongoing basis. Our advocacy also led the Committee on Education to require DCPS and public charter schools to track expenditures and publish reports on the use of at-risk funds. This information can empower school communities to become more involved in the decision-making process that shapes their school's budget. Even with this increase, DC school funding still falls far short of supplying every student with the resources they need to succeed. DCFPI will continue to advocate to ensure that DC school funding becomes equitable, adequate, and transparent.
The DC Healthcare Alliance is a local insurance program for low-income district residents who don't qualify for Medicaid, many of whom are immigrants. Unfortunately, thousands of district residents are unable to maintain their alliance coverage and do routine things like see a doctor or fill a prescription because of burdensome enrollment requirements. If you're in the district's Medicaid program, you can re-enroll by going online, and you only have to do so once a year. If you're in our Alliance program, however, this means going to a DC service center every 6 months, often arriving hours early and waiting hours in line to file paperwork and complete an in-person interview. And any errors mean repeat visits. Since these program requirements went into place, participation in the Alliance program has dropped dramatically, leaving thousands of residents without a source of health coverage. Over the past year, DCFPI's advocacy, along with coalition partners, led the DC Council to unanimously pass 2 pieces of legislation that would bring much-needed improvements to the Alliance program. Unfortunately, the laws have not yet been implemented because they have not been funded. DCFPI successfully advocated for $200,000 in the fiscal year 2019 budget for a public reporting requirement to better understand the experiences of Alliance beneficiaries when they go to service centers to re-enroll in coverage. We were also able to get a waiver to the Alliance in-person interview requirement so that residents who are hospitalized, disabled, elderly, or caregivers don't have to wait in long lines or return repeatedly. These changes are a step in the right direction, but people will continue to face significant barriers in accessing the Alliance program until the DC Council fully funds the already passed legislation. At DCFPI, we will continue to advocate for the full funding that is needed to improve the Alliance program and improve access to health coverage and care for the district's residents.
We've had some big wins this year, but we have big plans for the city. With your support, DCFPI will continue to work toward a more just and equitable DC, a place where every resident has access to quality, affordable health care and a safe, affordable home. A place where our schools have the resources they need to provide an excellent education to all of our students. A place where homelessness is rare, brief, and non-recurring, and where every worker is paid a living wage and treated with dignity and respect on the job. We've got a lot of exciting plans in the works, so please be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter and sign up for updates from the blog. Thank you so much for your support. We look forward to continuing this important work together.